Hi there, it's Karen at Corrie Paper Crafts here, independent Stampin' Up demonstrator in Central Scotland. Welcome back to another project, and this is continuing in my week of old meets new projects. So again, if you saw my Simple Sundays project a couple of days ago, you'll have seen that I made a project that I was on my blog about 4 years ago, and that was when I didn't do videos, I just did blog posts. And I think it was 2016 I made this box as well. So it's sort of short and not particularly deep, but still a fair size. It is 2.5 inches square, and it's 1.25, no, it's 1.5 inches deep. It's sealed on the bottom, but it opens at the top. So still quite a lot of room in there to put in treats, sweeties, whatever you want to put in it. The original box that I made, I actually made it to hold some mini bath bombs, and I did get quite a few in it. But I've not got anything in this one. So I'm back to using our brand new in colours for 2020 to 22, and I made this one using bumblebee cardstock and the gorgeous bumblebee ribbon, and the paper was from, let me just remind myself, the Flowers for Every Season designer series paper. It's the 6x6 pack, which I have shown in a previous video, but there's a very quick look at the sheets that are in it. It's a 48 sheet pack, and I've used a fair few sheets of that already. So I'm going to show you how I made this, and I'm going to be again following my own instructions on my blog, so let's hope that that's successful. So you'll need a piece of cardstock initially to make the box, which measures 11 3/4 inches by 7 5/8 inches this way, and you'll need 5 pieces of designer series paper altogether. You'll need one that measures 2.5 inches by 2.5 inches for the top of the box, and then you're going to need 4 pieces which measure 2.5 inches by 1.25 inches, and that's for these panels round the sides. Nothing on the bottom, but if you do want to decorate the bottom, that's fine. You'll just need another piece that's 2.5 inches square like the top. So I couldn't resist the Magenta Madness any longer, so we're back to using Magenta Madness again. I am absolutely in love with this colour, and I'm glad we've got them for a couple of years. So to make the box, I'm just going to have my phone beside me here. I will put a link to the original blog post. I'm sure it was 2016. So I'm just going to follow my own instructions in terms of the scoring. So on the long side of the box, I'm going to score at 2 3/4 and 5.5, 8 1/4 and 11. And then I'm going to turn my cardstock anti-clockwise, and I'm going to score on the short side at 2 3/4, 4 1/4 and at 7, and that's the scoring done. So without bumping the tripod, we'll get the scoreboard out of the way and do some folding and burnishing on all the score lines. I just absolutely love this colour. I just love it. Magenta Madness. It's just beautiful. Get these longer score lines burnished as well. And this little 1/2 inch part at the top. Okay, so this is what we're left with. I'll turn it this way round, because essentially these panels are the bottom of the box. These are all the sides, and one of these will be the top panel, and that's the flap for tucking it in. So when it comes round, I always like to double check. This seam will be at the back here. So I'm going to make this the flap that comes over the top of my box. So it's the one closest to this narrow section here. And I want to cut away all of this and all of this, because the only part I need to join the box together is this part here. So I'm going to cut up this score line, and I'm just taking away the score line as I go, just here. And then I'm going to make life easier for myself, and I'm going to remove this part first because I'm using my small scissors, and I tend to cut squint, but I actually discovered that I needed a new pair of paper snips because I kept cutting squint and couldn't understand what was happening. And it turned out that my paper snips were ever so slightly bent, so I'm going to have to give them to my husband and ask him if he can straighten them up again for me. I couldn't understand why I couldn't cut straight, which I'm not great at anyway, but squint scissors certainly were not helping. So this is, I'm just going to trim this little bit here because I've ended up with just a little bit of that score line left behind. So there we are. And again, I'm going to cut down here but keep the straight edge on this flap here, because this is the flap that's going to come over to close my box. And then I'm just going to cut straight down the other two score lines, because we're going to be removing a bit and we're going to be notching on the other two sections. So the score line is neither here nor there in terms of where it is. So I'm just cutting down to that score line there. So that is the flap that's going to come over. So these two flaps here are going to form the shoulders inside my box, and I'm going to remove this flap completely. So I'm going to get rid of this part first, and again keeping a nice straight edge as I go, because that's going to be the top of the box when I open the lid. So that's going to be facing, whoops, the front. Just as well I'm going to be notching that part. So I'm going to remove just over half of that square there, and just over half of that square there. You can keep these if you like, but definitely keep that part because you might be able to use them for punching out other things. And then because these are the flaps that are going to go inside the box when I close it, just to help it to close easily, I'm going to notch either side of those like so. And the same here. There we are. And I'm ready to cut up the score lines for the base of the box, and I'm just going to cut straight up all of these score lines and anything that's overlapping. Once the box is together, then I'll just trim once I've finished. And just to save on bulk, I'm going to trim down a couple of sections on this as well. So I'm just going to mirror, come on scissors, there we are. I'm just going to mirror this part here, but cut about halfway. It doesn't have to be exact, and the same on this one here. And it just helps with taking away a bit of bulk on the bottom of the box. So eventually what you should be left with is this. So I'm just going to use my trio punch to round the corners of my lid. Oops. There we are. And I'm ready to stick my designer series paper on. So for the lid, when your box is put together, It's all going to go that way, and your lid is going to face you this way because that's essentially going to be the front of the box. So if you do have a directional paper, make sure that you have it facing the right way. So I think, yep, I think that looks the right way around for my paper. And I'm just going to grab some fuse, some snail, which is retired. I am waiting for my new adhesives to arrive, so I'll let you see those as soon as they do. So that way up, and I just want about 1/8 of an inch border all the way around on all sides. That looks okay. And then I'm going to turn my box back round because this is the bottom of the box, so it's going to be sitting that way, so I want any directional paper going up and down that way, if that makes sense. So I'll just pop some snail round the edges here, and like with liquid glue, I'm getting it all stuck to my fingers. I think that's just me and glue, I'm afraid. So about 1/8 of an inch border all the way around. Oops. Let's rub that off or everything is going to stick to it. So another piece on here, about there. I think that looks right that way round. So next piece on here. Oh my goodness, I just love this. I just love this colour. I'm not a pink person in terms of buying a lot of pink things, and I don't wear sort of pink clothes, but in crafting I tend to go for the pinks, especially the bright ones, and I am just in love with Magenta Madness. So sorry not sorry, but you're going to see a lot of projects I think using Magenta Madness. So there we are, that's all my designer series paper popped on, and now I just need to grab my tear and tape, but if you could see the mess of my desk you'll understand why I'm struggling to find it. And I'm just going to add a piece along here. Now because it's quite a wide flap, I'm just going to add a couple of pieces, but you could trim the flap or use a thicker tape if you feel better doing that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, once my box is together, I'm going to fold in the base so that I've got a neat finish on the inside, and then I'm going to fold down my two flaps on the inside, the two side flaps, and then put this last flap over. And because I can see that they look like they want to overlap a little bit, then I'm just going to trim down either side of these to stop that from happening and keep it a little bit neater. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit of tear and tape along the edge of both of those, just to stop any gaping. And then this is going to be the front flap, which folds down last, so I'm going to put a piece of tape close to the edge there, but to save it gaping at the sides, I'm actually going to also add a little bit of tape either side of here as well. There we are. So I'm just going to give them a press with my paper folder, and then I'm ready to put my box together. So I'm going to do it upside down. Oh, excuse me, just because I'm right-handed and tend to bring things over from that side. So just remove the backing from my tape here and just fold over these sticky outy bits like so, and that joins up absolutely perfectly. And then before I put the base together, I'm going to close my lid. There we are, and that helps to hold my box together absolutely perfectly so that I can put the rest together and keep it nice and square. So I'm just going to take the backing off these two pieces of tape on the side flaps first. So the back flap's folded in already, those two side flaps are coming in together there, and then I'm just going to take the backing off the last pieces here on the front flap, make sure I've folded in any that are overlapping and fold that flap down. So I'm just going to open up my box and give that all a good press round the edges and across the middle to make sure that it's all well stuck. And then the last thing I want to do, no overlapping here I don't think, maybe just a tiny little bit there, so I'm just going to trim that with my snips. There we are. The last thing I want to do is grab my 1.5 inch circle punch and just put a little thumb notch in here. I'm just going to eyeball it either side to keep it straight and even, and just punch that out, and that just gives us a little thumb notch to make it easier to open the box. And then the last thing to do is pop on a piece of ribbon. So I'm going to grab my Magenta Madness ribbon, and my ribbon scissors just cut off that little bit with the little glue dot on it. Pop that underneath and bring over enough to be able to tie that in a bow. So about there. And just tie that in a bow. I'm just loving this, really loving this colour. I can't stop going on about it, and I can't stop saying how much I love Magenta Madness, but I am not going to apologise for that. I just absolutely love this colour, I really do. So which way is my loop going to go? I think that way. So I just want to trim that there and trim that about there, and just twist that round a little bit to get it to lie a little bit flatter, and I think I'll trim it a little bit more as well. There we go. And then the last thing I need to do is just a little bit of stamping. So I've got a scrap of Whisper White, and I've already got my stamp mounted on a block, and the stamp set that I used for my sentiment is the Forever Fern Cling stamp set. It's one of the red rubber ones. There you are, really pretty stamps in here, and there are dies to match this as well. In fact, I think I've maybe got them here, the Forever Flourishing dies as well, and they cut out all of these different leaves as well. So the sentiment I'm using is To a Friend That Makes Me Smile. It makes me wince a little bit, because I would say to a friend who makes me smile, not to a friend that makes me smile, but that's all we have on the stamp set. So I've either to use it or not, that's my choice. So it still identifies the fact that the recipient is your friend. And then again, I'm going to use my 1.5 inch circle punch, and I'm just going to make sure that I don't cut off any of the sentiment. It is quite tight, so you've got to just take a bit of time to make sure that you're just not quite cutting off that E or the loopy bit on the F or that D. And I'm just going to move it a little bit to make sure I'm not catching that E, and punch it out like that. And if it needs a little bit of flattening, I've smudged that a little bit, but that's okay. Then just take your paper folder round the edges. And then I'm coming back in with my rhinestones that I've not used, my champagne rhinestones that I've not used for a while, and because I've got quite a big gap up here, I used one of the medium-sized ones just here, and then a couple of the smaller ones to decorate in those other little spaces there. And then I added some dimensionals onto the back, and as you've heard me say in other videos, I'm economical with lots of things, but not with my dimensionals. If that's what it takes to finish off a project and keep it together and looking nice, then I'm not going to scrimp on my dimensionals, I'm afraid. Not after making something that looks as pretty as that. And then I'm just going to pop that in the down in the right hand corner there, just below my ribbon, and that's my box made. I think between the two, the pink is definitely my favourite, but that's not to say that I don't like the bumblebee as well. I do, but this is definitely my favourite by far, as is the designer series paper, I have to say. So that's it for today. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed watching that, and I hope you do go on and make a box the same. I would love to see them if you do. Give me a thumbs up if you did like the video, and before I go, or before I'm finished uploading, I will put a link to the original project on my blog in the description bar below. So thanks again, and I'll see you again soon. Take care. Bye bye. Don't forget to subscribe.